Are you aware that WhatsApp was invented in Israel? Are you aware that the Intel chip was invented in Israel? All your MRI machines, most of them, the technologies, I can give you a full list of them.
Teach us about what happened in the Holocaust.
Jews were picked up and sent for extermination, not for concentration camps. These were death camps. There was space above the heads of the prisoners. They used to stuff people there. Pregnant women pushed into these things who gave birth standing up. People used to die standing up in that with no ventilation, no food, nothing. And they would remain standing in their dead bodies. How did they kill some of the children? Not gas them or shoot them. Bullet was expensive. They'd bash their heads against walls. Which country will tolerate rockets every day?
My country is at war, fighting for its life.
Planned, organized, Jewish professors are not being allowed to enter their own campus. Jewish students are being hunted down like rats, I'm sorry to say.
The Hamas spokesman states the reason for attack on Israel, and the reason goes back 2,000 years.
So if you're feeling sympathetic for the Hamas, for the Gazan civilians, fine, there's no conflict. But if you do not feel anything for what has happened in Israel,
our fighters will continue to shell the strongholds of the enemy.
And remember, there's no such thing as proportionate. Oh, but only 1,200 died there and 10,000 have died here. How does that even work?
कुछ ही घंटों में लगभग 1,200 लोग मारे गए और लगभग 240 अन्य को बंधक बना लिया गया.
Palestine shall be free, which basically means that Israel, the pre-existing state of Israel there, shall be wiped out. So again, I will repeat this. This is a call for genocide.
We will fight until we achieve victory, total victory. There is no substitute for it.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of the OddCast show. Today, we are very close to a year since the Gaza conflict, and we have an expert on the subject. And, I would like to welcome Arjun Hardas ji on the show. Namaste ji, how are you doing?
Namaste.
So you're the India representative for the American Jewish Committee.
Yes.
I want to understand what that means first, and what do you do?
Very good question. That's the question I get from my director whenever I send in my bills, Arjun, what do you do in the daytime? The American Jewish Committee is an NGO. So one of the first original Jewish NGOs, and the oldest, which was set up in 1906 by New York by immigrant German Jews to help save the lives of the Russian Jews, of the Jews under the Tsar at that time in the 1900s. That is how it started off. And eventually we evolved into the way we are today. But in the middle of it, we also formed a set of values, which we all follow from then to now and continuous. One of them, for example, is, among others, is we promote human dignity. We promote democratic values. We do not have this thing which is common, which is, we will bring democracy to you. We don't do that. We promote democratic values. Human dignity, as I said. We've moved on from, it's not just human rights anymore, it's human dignity as well, along with this. Rule of law, as I said. Democratic values. Interests of all minorities, not just Jewish minorities, globally. Similar. Now, of course, because of the current situation, or geopolitical situation, also the threat from Iran, which is clear and present. So this is how we have been. The President, Shimon Peres, who retired, who finally was the president, called us the foreign ministry of the Jewish people.
Oh.
We got access to places where many people in Israel or the Jewish people normally cannot just go, but we have access to a lot of places, including the Arab world. We have engaged with the Arab world for over 30 years, which have now resulted in the Abraham Accords. One of my colleagues, head of global affairs, Jason Isaacson, has been working with the Arab world since 1989-90.
Okay.
And which now, as I said, and with India as well, he looks after, as I said, global affairs. So Morocco, he's been decorated by the king there. He's got awards because of the kind of work he's done. And he's not the only one. This is how we have done global work. We have about 20, forgive me for the exact figures, but we have about 23 or so offices in the 25 offices in the United States. We have about 8 to 10, 12 offices in Europe. And we have representations in India. I'm the India representative. I also look after Sri Lanka. Then we have a Southeast Asia representative. She looks after this region. And there is a representative in Japan.
Okay.
So Asia
So
Pacific.
it's more or less global.
More or less global.
Right.
I work for what is within AJC, it's known as the Asia Pacific Institute.
Okay.
So we are one of the largest geographies and, well, population as well to cover, right? From Japan to, well, across, beyond not the Arab world, that's separate. And believe it or not, we're just about 6 people in my department.
Wow.
So it's one of those, including our director. So all of us, we're a small department, but huge geographies.
So while I want to understand, I want to understand the whole conflict of Gaza.
Yes.
That what's happening.
Yes.
While we are going to get into that, I want to backtrack a bit. And I want to understand that, why are so many people against the Jews? Like, why are so many people, what have they done to piss so many people off? Like, for example, the earliest example that we can recollect, from our history books is the Holocaust and, Hitler wanting to gas the Jews. So what is it that they have done that has pissed so many people off? Why?
You said the earliest you can recall is the Holocaust.
Historically is what we've been taught.
Unfortunately, this has been happening for 2,000 years.
Correct.
And I will say this, to backtrack a little bit, is that it's not the world over. There are many friends of Israel and the Jewish people. You studied in the US, you'll be familiar with what is called the Pew reports.
Right.
There was a study done, a survey done a few years ago where it found India, not the United States, India had the largest number of percentage of population which is supporting Israel. So if you have, at that time, if I remember correctly, the figure was, I think 66 or 67%. Now 66, 67% in terms of numbers. You can imagine. That's huge in India. And then, of course, other countries have also got their equal amount of support. They've got very strong supporters and friends. Again, speaking in India, now that we're living here, in India as well.
Right.
Because India also recognizes the kind of threats which they are facing. They are facing similar threats.
Absolutely.
From terrorists.
Absolutely.
Etc. The background is, of course, the original trope which has been there about Jews responsible for the killing of Christ. And that has been debunked a long time ago. In 1964, the Vatican, there was the Second Vatican, which was held. I don't know the exact etymology of the word. Why Second Vatican was what happened in the first. I don't have that expertise. But the Second Vatican, which happened in 1964, by the Vatican, the Catholic Church, obviously, officially absolved the Jews of killing of Jesus. So that should have been the end of that.
Right.
But unfortunately, it hasn't been. So there's not just about, there is the plain, simple jealousy. That's one of the factors. Because the Jews, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Before Second World War started, the global numbers was about 18 million. Till 2024, they haven't regained those numbers as yet. In Israel, you have a total population of about 10 million approximately, out of which about 8.5 million are Jews. And we'll come to that, about the demographics.
Right.
And the accusations against Israel. But look at what all they've achieved. They live in a territory that probably, there's an old joke about it, is that when Moses, when they divided up the world, Moses took the wrong turn. And the Arabs got the oil and the Jews got nothing. They got the sand. There's no oil there.
Yeah.
There is no natural resources, literally. They've discovered some oil fields offshore, but that's not really fully operational as yet, to the extent that it should be. What do they have? They have their brains. They have hard work. And let's admire that about them. They're living in a tough neighborhood. And there are small people. Look, we talk about India facing danger. They're a huge country. Nobody can just wipe us out in, let's say, 6 days or 7 days. It doesn't work like that. The Jews are physically capable of getting wiped out if there is no defense in few days. A genocide can happen. It can happen. And people are very clear about the genocide. The Iranian president, previous one, Rafsanjani, had said, let's wipe out Israel from the world map. Genocide. The current statements all over the world that are running out campuses and other locations and all that is from the river to the sea. The Palestine should be free. Are they calling for Palestine to be free?
No, so what does that mean?
Are they calling out for a genocide of the Jewish people? And it's not just the Jewish people, it's Israel, which includes non-Jews also, which we'll get into that. People want to find the other to blame. The other. It happens in our country also, unfortunately. The other, whoever it is. You can't, blaming yourself is not a human nature. It's like blaming somebody else. In a marriage situation, blame the spouse, blame the children. Children blames his class friend, his classmate did something. So every time there is the other. So when you've got people like the Jews who succeed, you have a phone?
Hard work.
Do you have a phone?
Yeah, of course.
Are you aware that WhatsApp was invented in Israel?
That I was not
Do you
sure.
have a laptop?
Yes, I do.
Are you aware that the Intel chip was invented in Israel? At an Intel factory, but Israeli tech
They're the hub of innovation.
It's not just, it's beyond that. All your MRI machines, most of them, the technologies, I can give you a full list of them. Of technologies, advanced technologies which you're using today in day-to-day life were invented in Israel. This tiny country, you know what the size of Israel is?
It's nothing.
80 miles from the north to the south. 55 miles at the widest point. Widest.
That's it.
2/3 of the country is desert. 2/3. With these kind of, and of course the threats. We'll come to the rockets. Which country today, it's not a question of third world or first world or European or Asian or Middle Eastern and all that. Which country will tolerate rockets every day, literally?
And still innovate.
And still go ahead. And not only that, they have had a poll which was held. Israel was, I think, the second happiest country in the world.
That's insane.
Which is insane. But they I mean, I've been there now 10, 12 times.
No, I've been there. I've seen the scene there. It's wild.
They love their country.
Yeah.
During war, in most countries, people will say they get out of the country. No, they have flights which come back.
Yeah, they come back to fight. Yeah.
They come back to defend their country and their homeland.
Which is why I'm going to ask you why later. That why are they so patriotic?
Coming down to one is, as I said, this hatred, which is irrational. You want to find a cause to hate somebody, you will find a cause to hate somebody. People talk about, the atrocities which the Jews or Israelis are carrying out in Gaza is the reason for all this. 7th October, days after 7th October, were the largest number of Jewish lives, and non-Jewish as well, in Israel, of course. But if you talk in terms of Jewish lives, that were killed, close to 1,200. The largest number ever killed since the Holocaust ended 80 years ago. Question I again ask is, did the Holocaust really end? But since the end of the Second World War, 1,200 people were killed in one day, or 2 days or whatever. But the largest number ever since 1945. What can you do to explain such a thing?
No, I'm just trying to understand and wrap my head around this whole thing that, why are they so hated? Like, there must be some reason for it.
Because they're successful. And they don't ask for handouts. They don't go crying. Please do something for us. As I said, look at the number. They're capable. Suppose the Jews were not as smart or whatever it is, there would be a steady stream of aid going in and money going in and wasted. Now, UNRWA, which was set up in 1948, United Nations Relief and Works for the Palestinian Arab refugees, is still in operation today. What's going on? They're perpetually living in refugee camps or whatever it is. They don't settle down. In Israel, the population during the War of Independence was 600,000 Jews. In 1951, by 1951 or so, that number had doubled. Okay, people talk about the expulsion of the Arabs, the Nakba. Okay, nobody is saying my genocide is bigger than yours. We're not doing that. We're not getting into that game. 700,000 Arabs were expelled. Does anybody know 850,000 Jews were expelled from all over the Middle East? Every single Arab Muslim country expelled its Jews.
Really?
Yes. 850,000. Where did they go? They all came to Israel.
But then it's a narrative, right? It's a narrative.
No, they came into Israel. Today, do they have Jewish refugee camps in Israel? No.
They all settled down.
They all settled down. Third generation, whatever it is. Why should there be a refugee camp after 75 years? You're perpetuating this victimhood. You're being told repeatedly that what happened to you in 1948, to your great-grandfather, these guys are responsible. So you are still a victim.
Mm.
The Arab neighbors are not helping either. They keep them in camps. They don't give them citizenship. India and Pakistan faced a partition. 10 million refugees exchanged. 1 million people died. That was a proper genocide of a kind. Where are the refugee camps anymore?
They have been settled.
Everybody's been settled. This perpetuation of the victimhood
Is where the problem stems from.
One of the biggest problems, not the only one, of course, there are other factors, but
So I also want to get into, before we get into the main subject of the Gaza conflict, I wanted to ask you about, Jerusalem. And I understand that there is a conflict between 3 religions over there: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Now we have a precedent set over here in India where our judiciary has come forward and resolved a 600-year-old dispute using judicial means of a religious dispute, where there is a mandir and there is a place of worship for the Muslims, and they both said that this is our land, and then they went into archaeological evidence, etc., and all that, and they've resolved that dispute. And our judiciary is now saying that, hey, this is an example that we have set to the world where these kind of religious disputes can be set right by using the judicial means. Can this be done in Jerusalem, and what's the conflict there?
the conflict, first of all, the Christians are not directly involved. It's not like they have a conflict. They're very small. Their claim to the holy city is a different thing. That rightly so. They claim that they believe that Jesus was crucified and buried in Jerusalem, and what do they call it, Easter?
His resurrection.
His resurrection happened in Jerusalem, and etc. as their belief. That's fine. So it's a holy city for them. The Jews have their own claim that Abraham came and the covenant with God to become what they eventually Jewish people and all that kind of a thing was signed, so to say, was set in stone in Jerusalem. What became Jerusalem? That was done about 5,000-6,000 years ago. Abraham's covenant. So they've all got claims. As a matter of fact, I used to play the advocate there, and I said there is a India in the old city in Jerusalem. There's an Indian hospice, which was set up in the sense 800 years ago. Baba Farid moved to Jerusalem, and he settled there, and he had this little place there, and it's now become a hospice, and it's run by the grandchildren of the Ansari family from Saharanpur. And when you reach the hospice, there's an Indian flag there. I said, we also got a claim now to Jerusalem.
I mean, like, do we want to go there?
I said, let's not add to it.
We don't want another fourth religion coming in here.
So, that kind of thing. So it's like, okay, we are fourth claimants to Jerusalem. This is also our territory.
But why aren't they able to resolve the thing for 2,000 years?
One of the things is, no. Let's separate out. There's nothing to do with 2,000 years. The Jews, historically, religiously, there's enough archaeological evidence. I mean, there's no dispute about it. This is where Jews are from. And it says very clearly, Jews are from Judea. That's why they're Jews, inhabitants of Judea, which is this region where Israel is today. Now the question here comes in that so anybody who questions the Jewish right to this land, it's not a question of the political current situation, but where are the Jews from? Judea. This is Judea. So there should be no dispute there. There are people who question that as well. Coming down from all kinds of accusations. People say, the original land of the Muslims and the Christians. Previous president, this Abu Abbas. So I'm sorry, but where are the Jews mentioned here in your speech? No, they don't exist. They are the occupiers. Now, how does one occupy? By building underneath an existing structure. It's over normally. And you will not get into that. That's very complicated. Or what has happened in Temple Mount, etc. People can check on their own. But the fact that first you acknowledge, so what this has to happen, like you said, dispute, and all that. Let's start first with the Arabs acknowledging, and not all the Arabs, I'm saying. There are certain Arabs. In Gaza, Hamas is a prime example. When people say talk to the Hamas, Hamas charter very clearly says we have got no intention of talking to anybody in Israel, or they don't even mention Israel for the Jews, Our only objective is to wipe them out. Sinwar, the leader of the Hamas, appeared on television just a few days after, and he keeps doing the same thing. Coming on television channels says, we don't want to, our next move, whenever we get a chance, and this is quotable, you can pull it out. Whenever we get a chance again to carry out a similar massacre, we will do it again and again. So who do you talk to? The Palestinian Authority, which headquartered in Ramallah, they've had the president who's been now on, I think, 17th or 18th year of his 4-year term. There will be no elections there. Nobody wants to talk. The Israelis have said, let's talk. Let's start the talk. Nobody's interested. Now, the thing is that, and when you gave the example of the Babri Masjid and the Ram Mandir, you got to, both sides, whether they like it or not, or they're too fond of the idea, but everybody accepted the judicial verdict or judicial outreach. That, okay, you guys decide. Judges will, fine, I agree, judgment. Here, this is not the case.
But can it be the case in the future?
Look, both sides have to agree to an arbitration. Arbitration cannot be forced on them. And people have tried for decades. There have been all kinds of accords and agreements, and the Abraham Accords, which came out recently, is just one of them, but the Oslo Accords is the prime one in 1993, 31 years ago, which had a roadmap. 1980, 79, 80, 81, when President, what is his name, Sadat of Egypt, made a first-time Arab country head came to Israel. And one of the agreements was that the West Bank, however it is, there shall be a autonomy for 5 years, and then, and I haven't read the details, but autonomy for 5 years, the West Bank shall then have a self-governance and all.
Nothing happened.
So I have a question here. When this entire conflict started, when I was in college last year in August, and that time I was genuinely confused as to what exactly is happening because of all the misinformation that was being pulled out. There was a major side supporting one side, then there was another side supporting the other side. And whenever I used to ask someone that, what are your views on this, what exactly happened, they didn't really give me an answer directly to my question. They would just say that a lot of people are supporting it, so there must be something within it. So please tell me, as I am representing the entire college age group, as to what exactly happened and how do I navigate this?
Navigate this, very good question. Whole world is wondering how to navigate this, not just you. As a college student, I would tell you, keep out of this.
Okay,
it does not involve you personally as an Indian. Just your job is to go there and study. Stick to your books. And there has been a write-up also about the Indian students in America getting involved in it. And many of them are saying, their parents have told them, don't get into this. This has nothing to do with you. Keep away. Your job is to have paid through our nose to send you to college there. Don't waste your money. So stick to that, number one. Number two, have an opinion, but keep it to yourself. But get your opinion after reading multiple sources. I'm not saying don't read the Arab sources. No, read everything.
Read all the sides.
Read all the sides. Talk to everybody. Arabs may have a view, the pro-Arab views may be fine. I mean, that's okay. I may not agree with it, but that's not the question of my telling you that, no, you should not.
I mean, reading both sides will be the only way to understand what's the rational decision, right?
Somewhere you will eventually find what's going on. Somewhere.
But what is the Gaza conflict right now? What is it?
The Gaza conflict is simple. Well, it's not simple, but on the 7th of October, about, I forget the exact number, maybe 2,000-3,000 Hamas members and a lot of civilians, non-Hamas actors, and you can't even differentiate, but let's call them civilians and non-Hamas, so to say, for the ease of conversation, entered, broke the fences, attacked the cities, not cities, there was one city, Sadr, but the kibbutz and whatever that was, their Jewish presence in the morning on Saturday. Now, this was done There were signs. We will not get into the intelligence. That's for Israel to sort out.
I have a question on that, but
No,
I'll
we
ask
will
you
discuss
later.
it. There was intelligence. Obviously, what goes on, we can't second guess what's going on there. And sitting here, we definitely cannot. Anyways, we were asking what happened. So they broke through the fences. They had good intelligence, pretty obvious. They Hamas. They had aero motors, those paragliders, which came in. SUVs, motorcycles. They just pick up trucks. And they knew exactly where to go.
Right.
So when they went to a particular kibbutz, they knew how to get in, what is the road into it. Like I said, damn good intelligence. There is no two ways. And very well coordinated. We will give them that. After that, when they attacked, it wasn't just a question of taking hostages. That is one side of it. And what they did in these, I will show you. So what they did, they recorded with their own those cameras, head cams, and streamed it live. There's enough evidence that we have from camera recording that has been confiscated by the Israelis and found on some of these Hamas who have been killed. They're talking to their parents, say, "Mother, you'll be so proud of me. I've just killed 5 Jews." Yeah, there are people who say, "Oh, that is all, fake."
Right.
AI has been planted.
Is it really fake?
I don't know, but it isn't, because they have themselves proudly said.
But how do you know for sure that it's not
They've
fake?
said it is. The Hamas has said they've done it. When the Hamas itself says we went and killed and all that, we did this and we did that.
No, but they're acknowledging it on television even now. I mean, a lot of them,
The
now.
Hamas leadership, as I just mentioned, has openly said, and this is not on Israeli television.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
He's speaking on Arab television, whichever, Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, whatever. Some channel, the Sinwar fellow, the main lead. And by the way, just to backtrack, are you aware? Sinwar was a prisoner in Israel. He was a prisoner. He had brain cancer. He was treated by the Israeli doctors. Are you aware that the grandchildren of another Hamas leader, Hania, were treated in Israeli hospitals and fully recovered?
We're not aware of that.
This is what happens. This is how they do things. And there is a mother whose son was unwell and he was brought to an Israeli. This is recorded. I mean, it's available on social media, YouTube. She goes to, her son recovers in an Israeli hospital. So when they're going back, some volunteer is getting her back into Gaza. She says, "Inshallah, my son will grow up to be a suicide bomber and he will kill more Jews."
My question here is larger, where I understand from reading about this conflict in newspapers, Twitter, social media, etc., and all that a lot of hostages were taken by the Hamas.
Over
back
220, 230.
Right.
So, yeah.
And a lot of them also comprise of Muslims.
That's right.
And they've also taken a lot of people from Thailand, etc., and all, who were travelers, visitors out there. So they picked up randomly, not just Jews. They've also kept Muslims as captives.
Yes.
So my question is that, is this a religious conflict or is this a political conflict?
So it is not a religious conflict. It is not Jew versus Muslim. Now, when you mentioned the hostages, yes, there are Arab Muslims who are hostages. Yes, there are Thai workers who are Buddhist who are prisoners. What do they have to do with this conflict? Are you aware that during the operations in Gaza, there are so many Muslim soldiers and officers who have been killed in action for Israel? In 1971, what is the biggest event which happened? Biggest event, a day?
In India?
During the 71
India-Pakistan war.
No, in 71. In the 71 war. What was the highlight of the whole war?
The surrender?
Surrender ceremony. Now, who was there? You had a Jew, Lieutenant General, that time Major General Jacob. He was in charge of the whole thing. You had a CNC, a Sikh, General Arora, Lieutenant General Arora. You had a Parsi Chief of Staff, Army Chief of Army Staff, who was not there, of course, but it was his army, Field Marshal Manekshaw. Where were the Hindus there, technically? So like us, they have the same thing. That they don't hire according to religion, or assignments are not given according to what the person's religion is. They assign according to capabilities.
But that's a narrative that does not come out of there. It seems to be like a religious war.
That's exactly my point. How many Jewish recruits are there in Gaza? 0. Now, the standard phrase that is used, I will introduce you to a number of diplomats in India who are Israeli diplomats who are not Jews. Christian, Druze, Muslim, Arabs. As a matter of fact, in 48, in the War of Independence, there were a number of Arab Bedouin villages who decided to side with the Jews. And they have prospered. So, the religious war is a good distraction. Join us. We are fighting against the Jews and all that. It's not against the Jews. You're fighting against the state of Israel. Where you've got all religions fighting. All. Israel is not, and that is, I will repeat this here and now, and I will say this very clearly, Israel is not an apartheid state, which is the standard line which is used.
What does that mean?
Apartheid is a South Afrikaner word, which means apartness. A policy implemented by South African whites, racist whites, from the 1940s, 50s to when it was dismantled when Mandela took presidency. It means that you live in your area depending on your skin color. That separateness. Of course, the whites got the best territory and all that. The blacks were pushed into ghettos, literally. That's a separate issue. Is that what is happening in Israel? Number one, the Jews and the Arabs have both got the skin color. So there's no separation. Is there a question of religious separation? Are you aware that one of the former presidents of Israel was sentenced to jail by an Arab Muslim judge?
In Israel?
In Israel. Are you aware that, as I mentioned, the diplomats, ambassadors, generals, officers, pilots, not all of them are Jews?
Such a big misconception.
Are you aware? One of the facts, I'll tell you, I was shopping, I can't afford that mall, it's one of the more expensive malls, but I went walking through just to find a coffee spot in Jerusalem in one of my previous visits. And I saw this lovely jewelry store, where Israeli women were looking at jewelry. And there was a hijabi Muslim woman who was going through the jewelry. Right next to her was an Israeli, presumably Israeli, we can't tell, but an Israeli woman wearing a tank top, shorts, and boots or something like that. Shopping together, chatting with each other. That is the reality of Israel. There was an experiment held on video camera, secret camera, where people planted these signboards on benches, on beaches, only for Jews. And then they kept a hidden camera, watching. So the Israelis would come, they would see this, pick it up and throw it in the dustbin.
Just openly defying it.
No, this is not defying. This is an experiment to show.
I understand, but what I'm saying is that this is
the Jews who saw these signboards.
They're proving that
this is all nonsense.
There is no religious prejudice here.
There is nothing. There is no prejudice, far from even prejudice. It is one of the most equal societies in the world. Are you aware that you heard of the slave trade?
Yeah, of course.
In the United States?
Yes.
What happened? Blacks were brought to work as slaves.
Right.
Now, Israel is a predominantly white society. I mean, not pure white, not dark skin. I mean, to a large extent. Let's not get into the exact ethnicity of it, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Which other country, which is mostly white and all that, has brought in Jews, black people from Ethiopia and integrated them as equals?
Right.
As officers, as pilots, as security officers, as parliamentarians.
As judicial people?
Judicial also. There will be somebody. I don't know the exact. But I have met one lady who's a parliamentarian. She was born in Ethiopia. Where does this apartheid nonsense come from? If you want to talk about...
It's a narrative.
The story. So he asked somebody, and that idiot bothers to think, he will put it as saying that, the Palestinian Arabs are discriminated against. They are not Israelis. Why will they be allowed into Jerusalem without any reason? You're from West Bank, you're from Ramallah, Tulkarem, etc. Why would he be allowed into Israel?
Obviously.
You're not Israeli.
Mm.
You're welcome to take Israeli citizenship.
Mm.
But then, for all that it entails. Now, East Jerusalem has got a large, because the Jordanian occupation between 1948 and 1967, until Israel liberated East Jerusalem, Arabs had settled there because the Jewish side was wiped out completely. That nobody talks about, of course. But the Jewish part of East Jerusalem was wiped out. Their biggest synagogue, the Horaf synagogue, was demolished. The gravestones from ancient Jewish graves on Mount Scopus were taken up and used as paving stones.
Since you've said that that you've made it clear that this isn't a religious war,
Yes.
and we had a small mention of the Holocaust before this, was that a religious war?
No, it wasn't.
Why not? Why do you say that?
See, religious war is the kind where you got mobilized one religion versus the other religion. In the Holocaust, it was a massacre. Literally a genocide. The Jews didn't fight the Nazis.
Yeah, they were defenseless.
They were helpless. What logic is there? If you're saying it's a religious war, okay. What logic in war is there that you send a 1-month-old baby for gassing? What is the military law in that? None. Your Holocaust was, and the uniqueness of the Holocaust, it's a genocide, but the uniqueness makes it, why is it the Holocaust unique? And which is what I believe you have read my article, my op-ed, which I wrote, which was also retweeted by the Holocaust, the Auschwitz Memorial. Was about why Indians need to learn more about the Holocaust. There are a lot of people in India, rightly or wrongly, we're not getting into that, who say that, look, we had also had our genocides, rightly so, in a different way.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, so that, nobody saying, it is a good thing. But 6 million, okay, people have seen reactions, I've seen, which is like, okay, but, we've had much worse and all that. So I come back to the first topic which I had raised was, there should never be a concept of my Holocaust is worse than your Holocaust or my bet is better than, that's stupid. You can't
Holocaust
get into these. Holocaust is bad. Anything evil like this is bad for anybody. The Jews lost, as I started in the beginning, out of 18 million, they lost 6 million. 1/3 of the global population. 1/3 of the global population. Just
gassed. Just wiped out.
In all ways, not just gas, but wiped out in the camps and other places, including massacres in towns, etc., villages. What is unique about this? There was a systematic modern approach of wiping out a certain people.
Like an ethnic cleansing.
Much more than that. Cleansing is literally when you kick somebody out.
This was,
we don't want you alive. We want you to die.
But why? Why was Hitler against, why did
Hitler, nobody said Hitler used to work in logic, with logic. There was no, sense to, including
but he was
his
able
military.
to galvanize the people and,
That debate has been happening for a long time. How many Germans supported him, and it gets into history, which we don't have time for right now, including that the economic strains that the Germans were subjected to after the First World War. They had to pay France and England money, reparations, and all that. And Hitler tapped onto that discontent and blamed the Jews. Obviously somebody has to be blamed. So the Jews are responsible, considering that Jews fought for Germany in First World War.
Exactly.
That was the part of the army. So, and they've contributed. Germany was the first country where European Jews were assimilated. They were at as a matter of fact, Hitler's commanding officer was a Jew.
Right.
So, blame the Jews for what? But they had to find the enemy. Scapegoat. Had to be found. Now, there are a lot of apologists for Hitler who said, no, he didn't want to kill them. He just wanted to throw them out and all that.
But then why were you gassing them, and why were you setting up modern methods to exterminate them?
Extreme modern methods.
Yeah. And mass extermination.
Mobile extermination.
Correct.
Which means they would go put in whatever amount were fitted into these little trucks.
Right.
And put those exhaust pipes in and gas them. I mean, anybody who can, who's watching this, anybody who can should make a visit to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. Go and see what was done. And something which has been worrying me and a lot of other people for many years is that when the last Holocaust survivor dies, youngest, whatever, people will start denying it. And it's already started.
It'll be like a myth, basically.
Yeah. People say it happened, it didn't really happen.
Like your Kashmiri exodus.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen only.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
So, since you've said that Indians should be taught about this,
yes,
teach us about what happened in the Holocaust.
Holocaust, well, that's a very long, extensive chapter, but basically,
Sure.
the Europeans of the Jews of Germany and all occupied territory by the Nazis, that the Nazis eventually occupied, including France, including Denmark, or wherever they could find,
Poland, etc.
everywhere, the entire area, all of Europe that was occupied by the Germans, including North Africa, by the way. Jews were picked up and sent for extermination, not for concentration camps, which are theirs, of course, but it wasn't just a prisoner. These were death camps.
What exactly happened?
When you would go there, you were either worked to death or you were killed.
And not an easy one, like not an easy death, like just shot or something.
Look, death is never easy. And it's not a question of, I mean, how do you say that I prefer this death to that death?
It's not in our hands.
This is not an argument. And when you have whole families massacred, the first thing that would happen is in so many cases, people would come out of those carriages, and you should go and have a look at this carriage. This carriage, which I have seen at Yad Vashem and at the Rail Museum in Germany, in Berlin, for example, is made of wood, plain wood. I can't describe an actual size, but it's pretty, it's available to see. They would stuff them. Standing room.
Like bags of sugar. There's one on top of each other.
Let me put it this way, worse than that. There was space above the heads of the prisoners. They used to stuff people there. There were women, and I'm sorry to get so graphic, but there were pregnant women pushed into these things who gave birth standing up.
Damn.
People used to die standing up in that, with no ventilation, no food, nothing. And they would remain standing in their dead bodies. This is something which people should know about.
I mean, this is something I've never heard of.
That's my point. That is my point about education. It is so horrible, and there are stories which I will not tell, which I will not speak about on a family channel. But how did they kill some of the children? Not gas them or shoot them. Bullet was expensive. They bashed their heads against walls.
Oh my God.
You are a father, I am a father. We're all fathers here. Can you imagine your child getting picked up by their legs in front of you?
And you're helpless. Who is running this narrative? Is it Western media? Is it media as a whole? Like, why isn't media able to?
The fact of the matter
a good journalist should be able to just pick that up,
the fact of the matter is people are not interested in knowing the truth.
Why?
Because it's inconvenient.
They don't want to hear all this.
Because you have to see the victim.
Right.
Now, for some people, the Palestinians are victims. Many of them are not. It's not a good situation. Even in Israel, people do not say that they're enjoying what is happening to the Palestinians and all that. Being
in retaliation.
No. Generally, the life that they're living is definitely standard of life in the West Bank is much lower than what is in Israel. Now, whose fault is it is a different aspect. So everybody brings, they're prisoners. They're not. But anyway, huge argument there, which we have to go to a much longer discussion. So nobody's happy about that.
Right.
But the problem which comes in, look, in the last so many years, since 1967, the Israelis have negotiated with their former enemies and, with Egypt. They had occupied from 67 to almost 82. They had occupied the Sinai Peninsula, the Egyptian Peninsula. They negotiated. Sadat came to Israel. They talked. 79 he landed. And it took 3 years. It took time. But they got every square inch of land back. The Jordanians negotiated. It was a little territory of the East Bank, which was still under Israeli occupation. They gave it back. Small thing. But it was done. Let's take Gaza. In 2005, one of the people used to be scared of, called Prime Minister Sharon, tough guy, Mr. Security. Brilliant general in his own time. Tough, as I said, physically also big guy, and otherwise also a tough guy. He was Prime Minister. And people were shocked when he said, we are withdrawing from Gaza. Dead bodies were taken from Gaza graveyards, Gazan Jewish, and repatriated back to Israel. The entire Gaza Strip was handed over to the Palestinian Authority.
You take it.
You do what you want with it now. Do what you want. There were factories that were inside Gaza that were given piecemeal, that take the factories, start operating them, we'll buy.
Make a livelihood.
There were greenhouses given to them. They demolished everything because it is Israeli. And then 2 years later, there were elections held. The last time that ever happened in Gaza, 2007. Hamas was voted in. Let's not deny that. The people voted for Hamas. And the first thing the Hamas did was throw the Palestinian Authority people off rooftops. Kill them, hang them. Took over Gaza.
They did it to their own people.
Yes. Because they belong to another party, which is the Fatah party, the PLO. As soon as they did that, the first thing they did, the next morning, start firing rockets at Israel.
But
now, who is going to tolerate that?
No, nobody's going to tolerate an attack on your sovereignty or in your country and all that. I understand the retaliation.
One time is one thing.
But the narrative is different.
This is the problem, which is...
He's studying there and, he sees all these pro-Palestine protests on campuses, etc. and all that.
I hope you also see the pro-Israeli protests that are happening, counter-protests. But the numbers is the problem.
So, sir, I want to interject and ask a question here. You very clearly mentioned that people are not interested in knowing the truth. That's why all these different narratives start coming up.
Not interested in not interested in knowing the truth.
Right.
There's no effort made.
Right. So, what do you have to say to the average person who's under 30 years old watching this right now? How will you persuade them that whatever you said could be true? And how do they sort of distinguish the real narrative from all the other ones?
Try to find out genuinely.
But how?
Try to go ask.
Whom? Everybody's gonna, if I ask 10 people about this, I'll get 10 different answers.
Well, the numbers are there, no? The problem is, how did I, let's say, educate myself? I went to Israel multiple times. As a matter of fact, I spent a few days in Gaza about 14 years ago. I just went in, put my cap on in nice and hot weather, put a backpack with water. I went into Gaza and stayed there 2, 3, 4 days. But I made it a point to walk around, talk to people. Not with an Israeli with me, but on my own. Spoke to the shopkeeper, spoke to the people. What is going on? What is your narrative?
But everybody can't do that.
No,
right?
everybody cannot do that. You cannot know that. But
the average citizen, how does he know? Like the average person.
Citizen should learn to, I'm sorry to be so blunt, learn to use their brains. And don't be blind. If you want to support the Gazans, let's say, for what is happening today, attacking, which is not a good thing. Nobody's saying it's a happy situation that civilians are getting killed. Nobody. There may be some odd trigger-happy lunatics, even on the Israeli side. But they're a minority. The majority don't want, because they're also losing their own people. No? The former chief of army staff, the former chief of staff, lost his son and his nephew within one day. So, nobody's happy about that. Inquire. Go use your brains. Go find out. Read narratives.
But I think social media is a great balancer
can be used both ways, unfortunately.
But at least you get both sides.
You get both sides, but you have to also again learn to discern. And look, this is something I was laughing about the other day, is that 30, 40 years ago when we had no social media,
right?
People said, okay, how would you know the truth, Oh, today, now we have got 1 million sources of social media. But sometimes I laugh about that people know less now than they did earlier. Because they're confused because of so much of misinformation. Artificial intelligence, AI is creating...
It's worse.
It's terrible. And there is a problem. I don't blame you guys. But inquire. That's all you can do. Ask questions. And when you say that, okay, I'll backtrack. And when you say that, okay, terrible things happened in Gaza, children are getting killed, there's that and the other. Think. When and how did this start? So if you're feeling sympathetic for the Hamas, for the Gazan civilians, fine, there's no conflict. But if you do not feel anything for what has happened in Israel, and remember, there's no such thing as proportionate. Oh, but only 1,200 died there and 10,000 have died here. How does that even work? So what is proportionate? You mean
we kill only 1,200.
Only 1,200 Jews, Gazans will be killed and then it will be balanced. That's not how modern warfare works. You want to give an example? Let's give Second World War. Bombings happened in Japan and Germany. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of civilians died. They were not all soldiers and all that. Has anybody, the Americans or the British or the French, have they turned around and apologized?
None that I've seen yet.
No, they haven't. Because that's war. The Japan was nuked twice.
Yes.
Because of something happening not in Nagasaki or Hiroshima, but something happening in Japan, in Tokyo.
Tokyo, right.
By the government and the king and all that. So why would bichara, some poor peasant farmer living in Nagasaki
have to suffer there?
But that is how war works.
Right.
When you do this, you expect a retaliation. It's like the English phrase, stir a hornet's nest and expect not to be bitten is, I think, idiotic.
It's stupid.
It will happen. And now, what is not understood, and when this whole thing started, I was on television multiple times in a day. And this question which was asked repeatedly was, after a few days into the conflicts, when the war on Gaza started, when the bombing started, would Hamas have done this, what they did on 7th October, had they known the kind of retaliation the Israelis will do? Now, this is a very naive question because people who do not understand the situation there, which is a majority.
I think it's a very dumb question.
No, naive. Because people still believe that people are other people are fundamentally good people. That, they're like you, people like us, the PLUs, as they say. So, which is not a bad thing for humanity. But the Hamas leadership, I'm not going to speak on the civilians. I'm not going to paint them with the same brush. That's wrong.
So it's a political war.
It's a political war.
But then who is gaining? Who's gaining this?
See, wars are not meant to be gained or lost. Okay.
Somebody's profiting from it, right?
Well, I won't get into that. Profiting in terms of physical, monetary profiting, I would not, like to venture into that. If there isn't, I don't want to get into that because there's no point. But the narrative is what matters. Today, despite the deaths upon deaths upon deaths that have been happening in Gaza, devastation across Gaza, there are people who say Hamas is winning because they're able to still stand after 9 months of attacks.
That's like your opposition saying that I got less than 100 seats, but I won.
Yeah. Because I didn't get less than
last time,
so therefore I won. Yeah, something like that.
That's weird.
So because I'm not killed, therefore I'm winning. Because Hamas has not been wiped out in Gaza, so therefore I'm winning.
No, but who would be propagating this political war? In the sense that, okay, let's not talk about monetary gain. Let's talk about political gain. Who is benefiting from this politics? And, is it like
Kunal, it's not like a zero-sum game. Does the average Gazan, no matter what his or her beliefs are, do they want this to continue? No.
Nobody wants war.
Nobody wants this. Hamas, unfortunately, does. And let us not, we will come to this. Let us not forget the puppet masters. Iran. They're sitting safe and pretty. They're instigating, they're paying for, they're training, they are supplying the Hamas in Gaza and the Hezbollah in Lebanon. You think any of these organizations, these terrorist organizations, can survive on their own without any external support?
They can't.
They can't. Pure economics, 101.
So who is funding them?
Iran. I'll repeat what I said a little while ago. The president openly said Israel should be wiped off the map, world map.
The Iranian president.
Yes. They just sent, God knows, 300 rockets into Israel. And people say, oh, it wasn't a serious attack because none of them got through. 2 of them got
It
through.
was the Iron Dome and all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but what is the problem there? That the Israelis were able to defend themselves.
Right.
Was the intention of the of the Iranians to make sure that the Israelis will remain safe?
So I'm sure then even these college campus protests and all that are happening is all funded, right? It's all political. Like, how are they getting so many numbers?
Look up any visuals. The tents of these tent cities are identical. The slogans are identical across campuses. Who's open? This is not a random protest. These are organized.
It's planned.
Yeah. Planned, organized. Jewish professors are not being allowed to enter their own campus. Happened in Colombia.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Jewish students are being hunted down like rats, I'm sorry to say. They've been beaten. Jewish students on campus.
Even if they didn't actually personally do anything. Like,
what are they doing? American students. What will they be doing?
They're just going about their daily life. They're just trying to get educated.
What I meant by that is they're not writing something against...
They're not doing anything. They want to study. Like you.
And one question I had is that at a graduation ceremony at, I think, Columbia only, there was, I don't know if you saw that, they were coming with handcuffs and they were doing...
It happened in Indian universities also, but this is all drama. At the end of the day, this is all, what are you students trying to do with this? You think this is going to impress? Okay, fine. I'll tell you what.
It's not their place.
Do this and then go looking for jobs. Unless all of you students who are graduating with Free Palestine signboards think you don't need a job. If you think that, great. You're all Bill Gates reincarnated. All of you.
Right.
10%, let's say, need a job. Which employers are going to hire you?
Nobody.
And then don't go around blaming the society and
the system.
Claiming victimhood then.
Claiming victimhood. Like I said, I think it was Bertrand Russell or somebody, I don't remember, who said, there is a problem if you're not a communist in your college days. There's a bigger problem if you're an idiot if you remain a communist after you
continue to remain stupid.
So, sir, since we're talking about all these sort of protests that are happening around college campuses and off campuses also, there's a slogan that I've come across, from the river to the sea. What exactly does that mean and what are its implications?
Important. The river to the sea basically refers to the territory, to land, in between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, which basically refers to Israel. So what this phrase actually means, Palestine shall be free, which basically means that Israel, the pre-existing state of Israel there, shall be wiped out. So again, I will repeat this. This is a call for genocide. Anybody who calls this out, now there are going to be people who will say this is, no, it is not. It's a call about free Palestine. Okay, so where is the Palestine that needs to be free? What is the geographical location?
Right. I got your point.
Okay. How will there be a free Palestine when there is already an Israel there?
Unless they remove it and impose Palestine on it, right?
Exactly.
That's what they mean.
Exactly.
Then. All right.
Right. So
they're not saying from the river to Jerusalem, Palestine shall be free, which refers to, let's say, the West Bank. No, they're saying from the river to the sea, which means the entire West Bank, entire Jerusalem, entire Tel Aviv, the entire coastal belt.
Everything.
Right. Makes sense.
So it also implies that they're calling for this free Palestine, but there is no recognition of Israel.
Right.
There's no compromise.
Right. Earlier in this episode, we spoke about you rather and Dad spoke about the Jerusalem conflict, which is basically stemming from a couple of Abrahamic religions, and they, from what I understand, come from the same lineage.
Yeah.
So, and there is a sort of Abraham Accord that is now coming to
separately, but yeah.
What exactly is that?
So, okay, so we don't call it the Jerusalem conflict. It's not about that. Okay, it's much deeper than that. The Palestinians leadership and the Israelis are negotiating on a lot of things to talk about, which hopefully will one day lead to a Palestinian state independent one day. And frankly, these attacks by the Hamas have pushed that back by a number of decades. Now, nobody will want. Gaza was given independence like completely, and what has happened? So how much the Israelis eventually will trust an independent Arab state next to it is up for speculation. I mean, it hasn't been proven that it's peacefully living next to Israel is peacefully living. It hasn't happened. Hamas has proven this. So when an a Palestinian state living in peace next to Israel will happen, God alone knows. Nobody knows. I think even God has given up on that. Now, the number of things which need to be negotiated, so it's not just Jerusalem. The status of the refugees, land exchanges. There are already Israelis living in the West Bank. Okay, so what do you do with them? Is there going to be land swap, water sharing? There are a lot of other things which need to be discussed. It's not just Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is all, and that can all happen when the Palestinian leadership decides to talk.
Right.
And stick to it.
Right.
And agree that whatever will be decided. See, one of the craziest part of this whole thing is, I mentioned in the beginning that Arafat was offered the entire West Bank, East Jerusalem, this, that, and the other. He said no. You know why? People say, you crazy? No,
he wants it all.
He wants it all. He doesn't want anybody who accepts a Palestinian state will have to accept fixed borders. So then you're stuck. If you have accepted as a Palestinian leader, you have accepted a fixed border between you and Israel. That cuts off all your options about incursion into Israel, taking away territory, because this is not a ceasefire line anymore. It's now a permanent border. So the moment Israel says, fine, you've got your country, now you deal with your country, we deal with ours. Now, if the Palestinian leadership, let's say, in the future, which may include a Hamas government or whatever it is, decides we're not happy with this.
We want more.
We want more. Then it will be an aggression against a sovereign state with fixed borders. Between Israel and the Palestinian state, there are fixed borders, final and fixed. So if they decide to attack into Israel, it's a war. So therefore, they don't want a situation like that. They want to keep it ambiguous as far as possible so that they don't get a state or have any situation where they have to compromise on borders. Now, so what the Israelis have been doing is for some time, not just Gaza time, but much before that, is trying to find accords with people who do not have an immediate, or rather spreading the word, if I can put it that way. So the Abraham Accords is part of that. The Gulf countries, the Gulf Arab countries, UAE, Bahrain, others, have got they've never directly fought with Israel. They don't have a border conflict with Israel. So they found a way to work together. They found a way where they could have joint working. I went to UAE the other day, and it was one of the most peaceful places. I wore an Israeli cap, Nobody batted an eyelid.
Nobody cares. Sir.
Nobody cares. They're interested in business. They don't have a direct bone in this.
Right.
As a matter of fact, UAE the other day expelled some foreign students, I'm not sure which country they were from, who at a graduation ceremony at the Abu Dhabi campus of an American university, I think, but I don't remember, in Abu Dhabi, started off this Free Palestine placards and all. They were expelled from the country.
I read about that, yeah.
Just a few days ago.
Right.
So they don't all.
They just threw them out of the country.
They just have the thing that we are here to work. I mean, much to my surprise and much to not very happy, the Pakistanis and Indians get along the best in Dubai. I mean, good, actually. The best. They look after each other. That whole atmosphere is like that. So the Israelis are flourishing there. There are businesses. There's an Israeli journalist who became a correspondent for, I think, Gulf News, based in Abu Dhabi or Dubai or somewhere. But the point is, this is happening. So Abraham Accords is brilliant. And India joined in as one of the partners, which became the I2U2. Israel, India, UAE, United States. As a follow-up.
Right, I2U2.
And as a matter of fact, I had done a webinar just a few days after the Abraham Accords, in which I was the first one to raise this. that maybe when you have this kind of a coalition, and between, or at least between India, UAE, and Israel, and United States also joins in. Suppose there is an option about that Israel provides technology, India provides the factory space, UAE provides the finance, and the United States provides the market. Maybe a new thing can open up. And a lot of similarly multilaterals are happening. It's a whole new business opportunity. And not only that, and all multilaterals are happening now. There is the I2U2, then let's say Thailand wants to join in. So they provide something, and as a matter of fact, I2U2 projects have already been kicked off. There is in UP, there is a IT park or a food park or something. There is solar power parks being set up in Gujarat.
Wow.
Part of I2U2 agreements. Israel will provide technology, your UAE provides the finance. It's of course more flexible than that. But so it's a success.
Another thing that busts the narrative that it's a religious war is the fact that, a lot of the Egyptians have closed their borders. Lebanon has closed their border and they're not letting any of the Gazans in.
Well, Lebanon is on the other side, so it's Egypt only.
Yeah, Egypt is basically Egypt in what I read in the papers and the thing.
Yeah.
So if it was a religious war, they would obviously be giving refuge to.
It isn't a religious war.
It's not.
Let's be very clear about it. See, even for a Islamic religious war, there are certain rules that have to be followed, which means a coalition of imams or whatever. I don't know the exact rules, but it takes time. It's like you can't just declare a religious war. Certain religious leaders have to think about it, have to discuss it, have to endorse it, look at the conditions under which a jihad is being done. So everybody likes to use that word jihad loosely. It's not a jihad.
Is a system.
It's not a religious war.
So I think I'm going to sum this up as an understanding that there is clarity now that the narrative has always been that it's a religious conflict, religious war.
Narrative from the Hamas side.
Correct, but a lot of the worldwide media confirms that by writing articles, etc., and all that. So I'm happy that now we as Indians at least understand that this is not a religious war or a religious conflict. It's more of a political conflict because Hamas has also taken prisoners who are Islamic, who practice Islam. They've also taken prisoners who are Buddhists, and it's an all-out conflict on probably territory and politics. And I think we Indians or people around the world generally, especially youngsters, students and all, should understand and read both sides of the story before making a decision or before making an opinion or forming an opinion. That's all I would probably, take away from this episode.
Correct. And that's and also have more awareness.
Absolutely.
About what the role of Iran is in this conflict.
I mean, I would just sum it up by saying that anyone who does not listen to both sides of the story and form an opinion is a fool.
Yeah.
That's what I would just say.
I would not go that far, but yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Namaste. Bye.